We may smack up against some pillars you may have. And so I need you to be open to allowing your pillars to get smacked. Because it just may be that you may see things from a whole different perspective and everything may change. And so it's not my intention just to mess with your theology and your beliefs. It's my intention to help us set things correctly in terms of the lexicon. We have phrases and concepts and ideas that we use on a very regular basis that, quite frankly, we've all seen it up to this point. Many of them have been wrong. And so I'm not saying everything that you believe about the Ruach is wrong, but I think you may come to see that some of it may not be exactly right, and some of it you never would have understood or thought of. Even in modern times, I choose not to use certain phrases because it doesn't give clarity of understanding to use phrases that people have misused for so many years. And there's and I call those things Christianese, okay? Not because there's something wrong with it, but because the Christian usage of them has put such context and connotation on them that they no longer mean what they originally meant. They now mean only what people have filtered through this Christian point of view. I know you're going to be shocked to hear this. The Ruach, the Spirit, has been through the same thing. This was a full sensory overload. They heard, they felt, they saw, they smelled it, they tasted it. I mean, that's what at least the Hebraic legends are. I mean, they were, fully immersed in this event. It had a scent to it, a smell. It had a taste in their mouth. They could feel it, they could hear it, they could see it. Every sense was involved. There's also a Hebraic legend. Okay, and again, there's no way to prove this, but the Jews have always understood that everybody at Mount Sinai, remember there was a mixed multitude there, right? Do we all agree? And so that the legend is that everybody at Sinai heard Yahweh in their own language. The Jews have always had that understanding. So we have another miracle that's not actually mentioned here, but is connected to Acts chapter 2, is that each one heard Yahweh speak the 10 commandments and the commandments in their own language. What was the curse that happened at Baval? The curse at Baval, at the tower that was built, was to scatter them by language, to split and shatter people's understanding by language. And so here is a part of that healing process that was supposed to begin here at Sinai, where the languages were going to be brought back together and unified and to be able to exist back under the authority of Yahweh instead of under self-sovereignty as they were building a tower to the heavens. And we see that again is going to be part of the miracle that you see in Acts chapter 2. Can we see, when we see what happens afterwards, that this was to do what? The same things as Sinai. To test them, to put the fear of Yah in them, to impress upon them so that they would not sin. See, the purposes are the same. This was a very important event to get everyone's attention so that they would all understand that this was something that should give them an increase of the fear of Elohim. When we tell somebody they have a rebellious spirit, that means that their intrinsic nature at that moment, their disposition internally, is the essence of where they are internally is rebellion. Same thing with anger, jealousy, all these different things. And we're going to see verses that say improve all this. But realize that what we're talking about with the Spirit is very much talking about the intrinsic nature of something, the essence of something, as well as this idea of wind, breath, and breeze, etc. This is the biggest step, though, to understand that the Ruach has to do with Abba's intrinsic nature, the essence of who and what he is and how he thinks and how he feels. What and who you are at that moment is your intrinsic nature at that moment. You may be angry right now, that's your intrinsic nature. You may be filled with joy, that's your intrinsic nature. And this Pharaoh saw in Joseph the intrinsic nature of Elohim. As he understood, he understood gods. He understood what gods were supposed to be. He understood what they were purported to be. And he said, in this man is, more than any I've ever seen, is the essence of what we always believed God to be. These are people that were filled. Are they filled with a thing that's like an entity, a being called the Spirit of Wisdom? Hey, you want to blow your whistle, say, hey, Spirit of Wisdom, come here, I need you. No. Their intrinsic nature, the essence of them is that they were filled in their nature with wisdom. And Abba filled them with these things. So their intrinsic nature of who they are, the essence of who they are, these are those who had a spirit of wisdom about making garments. They were overflowing with that. That was a defining factor to who they are. But who is it? Whose spirit moved him. What do you mean his spirit moved him? In other words, his intrinsic nature, the essence of who he was totally in a giving generosity mode of appreciation for the Almighty and just couldn't give enough to that project. Does that make sense? Whose spirit, whose disposition and intrinsic nature moved them to take an action to come and give a contribution. It's not some entity that took them over. It's not some parasite attached to them. It's who they are, the intrinsic nature of who they are. They were moved based on who they were to be generous. See, the problem is a lot of us have spirits that aren't moving. We have spirits of intractability, laziness, stay still, do nothing. That is an intrinsic nature that you have latched onto and held onto and has become the essence of who you are. And we're going to talk more about how that plays in with the actual spirit realm as well. But understand that this is what you've allowed to happen, is that you are no longer moved by things that should move you because you become planted and rooted and you cannot move forward. And so what does the scripture want us to do? The scripture is asking us to change our intrinsic nature or mental disposition. Let this mind be in you that was in Messiah Yeshua, Philippians 2:5. To transform into the image of the Son. What is he talking about? To change our intrinsic nature to his nature.